Just before we get into this video, guys, if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, the links are here. And if you also want to support me on Patreon as well and help out my channel, that would be absolutely awesome as well. But let's get on with the video. Hey guys, Wingy here, and welcome to a brand new Doctor Who related video on my channel. Now, I think last time I did a Doctor Who video, it was talking about the top 3 best Colin Baker stories. Now, that is arguably the best 3 stories in one of the least popular eras of the show. So I thought, let's do the flip side of that this time. Instead of talking about the best whichever, why don't I talk about an era of the show that is usually highly regarded, such as Tom Baker's, and talk about some of the worst, because no Doctor is above criticism. Absolutely none of them. So let's take a look at who I would say is my favourite Doctor, and also the best Doctor, and some of the just fucking shit stories that he's got. So, like with the best one for Colin, we're going to be talking about 3. And as always, it is personal preference. So, now this is in no particular order, so I will start off with the Mask of Mandragora. Now, I've got to say, this story, for me at least, is one of the most forgettable Doctor Who stories that has ever existed. I can't believe that this script convinced Elizabeth Sladen to stick around on her contract for a couple of extra months, because originally she was supposed to leave at the end of Seeds of Doom, but then she read the script for this one. What was it about this script that she just thought, do you know what, yeah, fuck it, this is mint? The problem with a story like the Mask of Mandragora, at least for me, is that I'm not huge on the pseudo-historical stories. So of course there are exceptions to this. I do like stories like The Visitation, The Fires of Pompeii, The Empty Child. But I don't really like stories set in the past, you know, with sort of like knights and horseback and sword fights and things like that. It's just not something that's appealing to me, and it never has been in anything, whether it is Doctor Who or, well, anything else. And so when Doctor Who does it, I immediately am not interested, and I'm immediately not engaged. But then you have a story like this, which is just fucking boring. Like, the story in this is just there, innit? It's not the most exciting story on the planet. I think what makes it worse as well is the fact that it is sandwiched between the Seeds of Doom, which is a phenomenal Doctor Who story, and the Hand of Fear, which is my favourite Doctor Who story. So the fact that it's in between those two, you just kind of gloss over it. In fact, I often do skip this story, and I think I've only ever watched it maybe twice at the most. I just don't care about this story, and I guarantee you, until I mention the Mask of Mandragora, you probably forgot about it as well. Okay, so next up, it's gonna have to be Underworld. Now, this story, it often gets a bad rap, and I understand why people would defend this one. And I always say, you should never hold the special effects of classic series Doctor Who against it, because it's just not fair, because the budget wasn't there, the technology wasn't there. It's just silly, because there are some phenomenal Doctor Who stories that look absolutely horrendous. This story, however, I would say the special effects are very much detrimental to the overall story, because it's just so distracting. Underworld uses a hell of a lot of blue screen. So the majority of the sets, well, I say the majority, all of the cave sequences are filmed in front of a blue screen. And it's just so obvious. It's really, really badly done. And if anything, it makes me feel bad, because Doctor Who is always treated as that hokey little sci-fi show that was on the BBC. And I think people will look at a story like this and they'll go, ah yeah, it's exactly what I was told it was. Like, there's being ambitious and then there's being over ambitious. It was obvious that on the budget that they had, they couldn't get away with a story like this. If they didn't have the technology or the time to be able to implement it properly, then just don't do it. As far as I'm aware, season 15 was a huge struggle to keep the budget in check. There were so many different problems as well. Stories that were cancelled at the last minute, some stories that had to be written literally weeks before they were due to be filming. Now, in terms of like the lore with the whole Minyan thing and the relation to the Time Lords, that's actually quite interesting. However, it's a bit underdeveloped, and to be honest, it's the only really noteworthy thing that's good, at least, about this story. The entire cast just looks bored, especially Tom. Tom just doesn't care about this script, and you know what? I don't blame him. Considering that around this time Star Wars was released, the difference in quality and what they can do with a budget, I mean, obviously because Star Wars is a Hollywood film, but it's just the gulf in class between what they can actually do was so much emphasised in Underworld. There is an intriguing story here. It just never ever gets to the surface. There's nothing about it really that is worth watching again, you know? There's nothing about this story where I'm just like, actually, you know what, that was bad and that was bad. However, this bit, or the story is actually quite good. I mean, credit to it, at least they were trying. And then last but not least, if we're talking about 3, it's got to be the Laser Hive. Now, the Laser Hive is an interesting story and is also a landmark Doctor Who story in the sense that it is not only the first episode of Tom Baker's last season, it is also the first story that would have John Nathan Turner as Doctor Who's producer. It would be the first story of a season to be fully broadcast within the 1980s. And there was just a huge overhaul of the show. You've got a new title sequence, new music, both in the title sequence and also incidental music. Tom Baker has a total redesign of his outfit. The whole vibe of the show was going to go from silly and over the top to a bit more serious and scientific, and the actual scripts and the stories and the plots, they would actually feature some real world science. So the original idea of Doctor Who, to educate kids about science and history, they were trying to bring that back. The problem is, when you start off with a story such as the Laser Hive, it's not the best to start. The Laser Hive is just fucking dull from top to bottom. There is really not a lot about this story where I can just be like, you know what, I'm glad they did that even if it didn't work. Tom, again, is clearly bored. He's clearly bored with the part at this point. He's not totally bad throughout this entire series, or this entire story, really. He does definitely have his moments, but for a lot of it, and if you've seen some of the behind the scenes clips and whatnot, and how they talk in the documentary, Tom wasn't very happy on set in this one. Again, Lalla Ward also kind of looks a bit bored. She has a fair amount to do, but not a lot of it is interesting. You've got the Fomasi, who I think are a really interesting design and a really interesting creature to see in Doctor Who, and they were done well. They're not perfect, they're not going to stand up today, but for 1980, yeah, they are perfectly serviceable, and they are directed incredibly well. But you have the actual thing of the Laser Hive, where you have bumblebee people, where baubles fall off their head and they die. You've got this weird tachyonic science that is real world science, I'm led to believe. However, the way that they explain it in the show, you need to be an expert in tachyonics to understand what they're saying. They don't really simplify it. They don't help you understand it. And I don't know if this is the script, or I don't know if this is special effects, but when they try to explain it, it is not made clear what the fuck this science is. And given the fact that the entire plot thread relies on tachyonics, you just have no idea what's going on. Also, this one is quite a weird story in the sense that it is so music heavy. And I don't mean it's a fucking musical or anything, but I mean there are so many times in this story where just music is playing, incidental music. I don't think there's a single moment where there isn't any. There's always music playing. And after a while, it gets a bit jarring and it gets a bit over the top. I mean, like I was saying before, they had totally changed the music in Doctor Who, and so it properly stands out. I don't know if that was intentional, but it's not a great start when you consider the previous few stories and how Dudley Simpson's soundtrack sounded. Going from that to this, especially how heavy it is, I don't know, I think you could have eased people in a bit better. The Doctor's old for a bit as well. That wasn't done for plot reasons, that was done to piss off Tom Baker, and obviously it did. But apart from that, it's just not a story that I enjoy. I really like season 18, I genuinely do. I think Meglos is a far superior story to this, and I don't understand why out of season 18, Meglos is the one that gets all the shit, because yes, alright, it's a shape-shifting talking cactus, and it's a stupid idea, but it's a fun idea, and Meglos is exactly that. It is fun. This is just dull and boring and confusing and is just fucking shit. So if you're gonna attack season 18 or you're gonna single out a story, probably should be this one. But those for me are the 3 worst Tom Baker stories. Like I say, I can't really put them in order of, well, it's not really preference, is it? But you get what I mean. I don't like any of them. I think they all definitely do have some parts about them where I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine, but overall they're the weakest stories for me in what I would say is one of the strongest eras in the entire show. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree with the 3 that I said? If not, which 3 would you say are Tom Baker's worst ones? I mean, there's a few stories that I could have said. I imagine a lot of people are going to say stuff from 15, 16 and 17 in terms of the seasons. Whatever it is, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it, subscribe for more. Social media and Patreon links will be in the description below, so if you would follow me on any of those, I would absolutely love you forever. But Till next time, guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye.